Hey peeps, welcome back to the Growth Lab podcast. I'm your host Matt Harris and I run the Growth Lab, a lead generation consultancy for commercial cleaning businesses. In today's episode, we bring an international perspective to the Growth Lab podcast as I chat with Daniel Valverde, who runs a residential cleaning company in Puerto Rico. This is a different format to previous episodes of the Growth Lab podcast, as Daniel's interview has been recorded in two parts. This is the first part where we discuss everything from Daniel's origin story growing up in Puerto Rico to moving to the United States and learning English while serving tables in restaurants, being promoted to earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in corporate restaurant sales, starting an e-comm business, and being diagnosed with cancer, all before launching his cleaning business. In the second part, which goes live next week, we dive into how Daniel started his cleaning business, built his team, acquires staff and customers, and collects social proof. We had a great chat and I'm really excited to share both episodes with you, so sit back and listen to part one of my interview with Daniel Valverde. Ready? Let's dive in. Hey Daniel, thank you very much for joining us on the Growth Lab. So look, we normally start the episode with getting all the guests to tell us a little bit about their backstory, how they got into starting their own cleaning business. So why don't you tell us how you got started? Because I can tell that it's going to be a very interesting story. So let's go.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm actually originally from Peru. I'm the youngest of five people, raised by a single mother in Peru. My grandfather in Peru and his brother started one of the first printing companies in Peru.
Oh, wow.
So before I was born, my mom he did really well with this printing company. Like they did really well. So he was like a very affluent man. Like he bought two houses next to each other. My mom and he had five. I mean, my mom and her brothers, there were five of them, and they were all taken care really well. Like he was known in the community. He would go around and like buy Christmas presents for all the kids and during the season and things like that. But actually, this comes from secondhand to me, but he lost everything.
Oh, wow.
There was like a partner that he worked with that actually ended up screwing him over. So they lost everything.
Yeah.
By the time I was born, my mom was super poor. Single mom, there were five of us. We were all living in one of those houses that he bought, but he couldn't work anymore. He only tended to his garden, but they lost everything. So like I grew up super poor, though I didn't know I was poor. I only found out I was poor when I was like later on in life, and I just like, figured it out, oh shit, looking back, I was poor. Yeah. Because during the time, like the five of us would always like have fun. We always had something to do. Like, we entertain each other, like we played like cards and things like that. It was always fun. So we didn't know.
Your mum did her best then, I guess, to, make sure that regardless of the situation, you were growing up with the necessities, right?
Yes. And my mom is like a very smart woman, and she was a very tough woman, but she also trusts us a lot. Like we didn't have like a curfew. We will go out, we play, and then we come back at our own time. But we actually never really stay out really late. We never did any drugs, even though like it was like really close to us all the time. But we just like decided not to do it. My mom was like I don't know, like a very stern, very smart woman. They knew how to raise the five of us. So my dad, he left early on to look for the American dream. Supposedly he was going to come to the States and he was going to provide to us from this. But that took actually a really long time, and it only lasted for a very short period of time.
Okay.
So when my brother, the oldest one, had the chance to migrate to New Jersey, he took it. So when he was like about 19 years old, he migrated. Then he did what my dad was supposed to do. So he started sending the money, he helped us out. So we started like progressing life thanks to him.
What was your brother doing?
Then he came to New Jersey and he started working in a restaurant as a busser, then a food runner, and then a waiter. So he just worked all the time in the restaurants, and he would send money to us for our school, for things, to eat and all that stuff. Then he helped my sister move there eventually, like a couple of years after she did it.
Okay.
And then like 10 years after he left, it was my turn. It was always known that I would go to the States. Like I never really had a choice in it. It was just like, okay, you're going to end up in the States. We're all going to end up there.
Did you want to go? Would you have chosen not to if the choice is up to you?
I knew the opportunity. I knew how much more opportunities I would have there. Like I've seen people in Peru that are very talented, they go to school, they get their diplomas and whatnot, but then they're working in like something completely different, or like, make minimum wage and like a different, like a waiter, or like a whole completely different job than what they go to school for. Like, I mean, some and make that a lot of like cool make it, but like it takes way more than doing it in the States. So I always had that in mind, and I wanted to help my mom, and I always had this goal that I wanted to bring my mom back what she had from her dad, because she grew up being very comfortable, but she lost all of that. So then she experienced being very poor. So I want her to bring it back to that, to being very comfortable. So it was my turn. 19 years old, it was my turn to move here, and I did it. I came to New Jersey I lived with my sister for a little bit, and I lived with my brother for a little bit. He got me a job at his restaurant, so I worked at the restaurant as a busser because my uncle used to work there too, and then he got sick, so I covered for him for a little bit, and then I just kept it because it was good money. At the same time, I also work at a ShopRite supermarket, and in the produce department. That's how I learned English by working in the supermarket, because it was fun and nobody in there spoke Spanish. I mean, so there was one Asian guy that spoke a little bit Spanish, and he was to be the one that would guide me, like, oh, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, with his broken Spanish, and he was like one of hilarious men. But thanks to him, I learned that I needed to learn English. He would make that clear to me. He said, you need to learn English. You want to be successful, you need to learn English. You want to be successful, you have to learn English. So by necessity, I was, okay, I'm going to learn English. So I never watched TV in anything but English, always with the closed captions. I changed my music to only listen to music in English. I would translate lyrics of songs from English to Spanish, from Spanish to English.
Nice.
I would try to talk to people in English, even though it was broken. I would always I would still try to talk to them in English, and they, get out, order food. If I messed up, I would call and order food. People always sometimes hate it, because what?
Yeah.
But I just try. So 6 months in, I was already speaking English. I go
nice.
They be very conversational and did that. So I wanted to be a waiter, because the buses make decent money, but the waiters make the most money.
Yeah.
But that restaurant didn't want me to be a waiter. The owner thought I wasn't ready. So I was like, well, I want it, right? So I went to the mall and print a bunch of resumes and start giving it to everybody. I want to be a waiter. So I went to every single restaurant in the mall and gave them my resume. So the last restaurant that I'm going to, they were actually not open, but they were about to reopen. And the general manager got my resume. He said, oh, you have Italian restaurant experience. Yeah, so I was at an Italian restaurant. And yeah. He said, oh, why don't you come for orientation today? Sure, yeah, it's in a hotel. So they were doing orientation for this restaurant that were reopening. At that moment, he already hired me, and I didn't even know. So I went to orientation, and I didn't know that I already had the job, and I was just literally orientation.
Yeah.
So I was there in this Italian restaurant, and my English is super broken.
Yeah.
But I still I'm a waiter. Yeah, I'm good. I'm ready. So it's I just make sure that my uniform was always perfect. I learned the menu inside and out, and I would just try to pay really attention to the table. So I would go to the tables, and whatever they would see, I would look at the menu, so they would point out of it, and I would really pay attention and just write down what sounded the most possible to me.
Yeah.
So even if it wasn't that, and then if I couldn't find it, I would just go to another way and repeat, hey, what would you think would be this be? And just repeat the word. And they're oh, okay, that's that. Oh, thank you. And especially for drinks, because I don't know anything. I don't know what a cosmopolitan is. I don't know a martini or whatever. So I would just write down and go to the bartender. What does this mean? Oh, okay, that's how I did it. But eventually, I actually got good at it. To a point that the general manager, he would use me for examples, and it was always really funny, because we have a pre-sheet meetings, and he would be like, Daniel, I don't understand one word he says, but he sells, and he sells more than everybody, so I like him. I was like he would do that so many times. I don't understand what he says.
What was your key to selling? Was it the fact that you were paying such close attention, and that you were
I was really good at the menu.
Okay.
I was really good at the menu, and I have a really good present. I always had my shirt was super clean. I was I tried to walk around I knew what I was doing. And I just talk to people with confidence and be like, oh yeah, we can do this and we can do that. And that's I was good.
Nice.
And it clicked, and it they made me a trainer for all the waiters right away, maybe 6 months in.
Oh wow.
It was fun.
Amazing.
So from there I just kept on escalating in different restaurants. So I would just get jobs at restaurants that would make me more money. So I worked to from Italian to a seafood restaurant, then I went to this other restaurant in New Jersey that's a very fancy steakhouse, and I got experience there, but I actually ended up being fired for something really stupid. But when I got fired from there, I was like, okay, I work in restaurants all this time. I'm very close to New York City, a 30-minute, 45-minute bus ride. Yeah. And they make the most money as waiters. They have the best restaurants. So I was like, I'm going to do that. I want to be a waiter in New York City. So I did the same thing. I printed a bunch of resumes, and I went to the city and dropped my resume everywhere. Yeah. And I happened to go to this very famous steakhouse, and I dropped my resume. And then that night, somebody calls me, which was the GM from the first restaurant that I worked, the Italian restaurant. one of the GMs, and he goes like, Daniel, did you just apply at this place? And yeah, I did. He said, well, I'm actually the general manager of the one in DC, but I trained the manager the GM in New York. So I'm gonna call him and gonna tell him to give you an opportunity. So like that was it. Like the next day I went, I have an interview with the GM, they hire me on the spot. And then from there, it was really good. Like that's a waiter making like $85,000 a year.
Really?
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, it was awesome.
You must have been working crazy hours though as well, right?
No, I was working like 5 days a week or 4 days a week. And until like you would get there like 4 p.m. and leave by like 9:30, 10 p.m. It wasn't bad at all. It was a really expensive restaurant. So like you make really good money. Yeah. But then so later on I got in a serious relationship. So I decided that I needed a real job. Yeah. So I asked the regional manager of the restaurant. I was like, I want to be a manager. I decided I'm going to be a manager. I'm going to take a pay cut to be a manager because they make less than the waiters. Sure. And I said, okay. So the guy got me an interview. My grammar wasn't good. So I actually asked my ex-girlfriend to write a very nice reading email as if I wrote it. So we can send it to like a cover letter. So we can send it to over there. So so they could consider me. Then we did that. I got a recommendation from the manager, and I did a couple of really good interviews, and I got hired as a restaurant manager. I took a $25,000 pay cut, I think, or something like that.
Wow, that's a big cut.
I know. But I actually, once I got there as a manager, I became the beverage director like 6 months after. Okay. And then I noticed that the sales manager, which is the person that in that particular restaurant, they have 4 different private dining rooms. And this person's job was to sell them and to, sell them for private parties. And she would get a commission of all the parties, like 3% of all the parties, 2% of all the parties, which is really good money. And she would work a 9 to 5 in the restaurant business, eat in the restaurant and all this. I was like, this is the job that I want. I was like, I want to do this. So then later on, like maybe a couple of months after, she puts her 2 weeks and she gets she leaves. And I was like, I want this. And I pushed for it really hard. My GM pushed for me, the AGM pushed for me. I did a couple of interviews and I got that job, which was like the job that you wanted. So I got back to almost $100,000 a year in the span of a year of being a manager. And this job was really good. Like I would get there. My job started at 10 in the morning, from 10 to 5, 6 p.m., sitting in an office, eating restaurant food. All I had to do was answer phone calls. It's like we would get to order from the menu. It was amazing. Oh, man. And all I had to do was answer phone calls and emails. Yeah, that was all the thing. And my grammar wasn't still really good, so I downloaded Grammarly, and then they gave me access to the email of the previous person because it's the corporate email for sales, right? Yeah. And I went through every single email and I read like the possible questions that people would ask, And then I made templates of how she answered all of these different questions. So I have bookmarks with templates of like, oh, if they ask me this, I answer with this email, and I would just copy and paste it and add a little bit, and that's how I got by, right? But at the end, I was sitting in an office answering phone calls and emails all day. Yeah. From being a waiter for like 10 years, being on the floor, talking to people, moving all the time, I was miserable. Yeah, I bet. Because
you seem like a social guy, right? So you were enjoying being out.
It was connecting so with people. Bad. Definitely. I would actually get up and walk to the kitchen for coffee like several times a day, just to have the conversation with the cooks, the conversation with the waiters, just walk around and talk to people, because I would get so bored. So it got to the point that one of the directors of the company was busy, and he's like, Daniel, you don't look happy. Like, is everything happening? Is everything okay with you? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I don't want to work here anymore. I quit.
It just came out like that.
Like that. At that point, I have an idea of a business, but I haven't done like anything to it, or like very, very little to it. Yeah. And I was like, no, I can't do it. I was like, and he said, what? It's like, he convinced me to stay for like, it was like September. So he wanted me to stay until December, because December was the busiest time of the season, and to train the next person. I said, yeah, but I negotiated. I'll do it, but I work from home on Mondays and Fridays. And he said, yeah. So it was awesome. So like for like 3 months or 2 months, I was like working 3 days in the office, 2 days from home. And I was working on my next thing. So what I wanted to do, actually, let's rewind a little bit. First, I actually saw the cleaning company idea from Rohan. You know how Rohan did the entrepreneur ride-along thing a really long time ago? Yeah. I saw that live as he was doing it. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to do something like this. But then I actually got into e-comm, and I said, you know what? Actually, I want to do an e-commerce. Yeah. So I went to start a wooden watch company. Okay. Like watches made out of wood, like watches from China. They just like relabel and, like made some modifications to the watches. And I wanted to do that. Yeah. So that's what
just before we jump into that, how come, did you at any point think that you would stay in hospitality and maybe set up your own joint, set up your own restaurant? Had
No,
that thought crossed your mind?
I never considered opening my own restaurant. I think opening your own restaurant takes so much from you, and it takes so many hours to work. Like I've seen many restaurant owners. You're working there Monday to Sunday. You gotta be there like 9 a.m, be there until close at 11 p.m.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy life. I will invest money in a restaurant at this point or later on in life, where I could go and put some of my input, use some of my experience, but I wouldn't buy a restaurant that I will have to run myself and be present in there.
And do you still have your swipe file of all those responses? Because I'm sure they would be valuable to anyone, to any restaurant managers,
right?
Because
because I actually have it saved in the same email, so I'm pretty sure it went to the next person. So they probably have it.
Nice templates.
I know.
So e-comm.
So
you set up an e-comm.
While I was doing finishing my last few weeks of the restaurant, I started focusing on this wooden watch company. And I actually decided I'm not going to get a new job. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do this I had some money saved, and I said, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make this successful. The person that I saw on whatever I learned from, I said, oh, this person made $40,000 on their first month. And oh man, if I make 8, I'm set. I'm going to be good. I'm going to make 8. I made like $200 the first month. Like, it was like so bad. I saw like 2 watches maybe. I didn't know what it was doing at all. I was like, I thought like I'm that kind of person that like, oh, somebody else is doing it, they're doing well, I can do a little bit of that and I'll be fine. I was like, but like, no,
I'm the same.
So yeah, it's like I wanted to make it successful, so I tried for a little time, but I ended up having to go back to be a waiter to have money to like continue live and try the wooden watch company.
Yeah,
I will say though, from that company I learned the most, because I didn't want to hire anybody for anything.
Sure.
So I bought a camera. I bought the cheapest camera equipment that I could possibly find.
Yeah.
And I did everything myself. So I created the website myself. I took all the pictures. I edited all the pictures. Like I negotiated with the people in China. So the logo, I paid for somebody to do the logo, but everything else was me. So
how do you learn all those skills? What resources did you use to learn?
YouTube videos.
Okay.
For the camera, I learned, I just watched some YouTube videos on the settings, like the best settings for different locations. So, because it was a DSLR camera, and I didn't know anything at all. So I just like tried different settings, and I would go with the watches in a backpack and walk around the whole city. And now anytime that I would see something, oh, this looks interesting, I will put the watch there, bring the camera, take a bunch of pictures with all the different settings until it looked good.
Nice.
And do it all again. Like one time I walked from like 14th Street to like 105 feet street all the way in New York, and it was like a straight shot. I would go like street to street,
zigzag
just
around.
Like looking, so like I had taken like, I think I saw it's like 30,000 pictures in like a span of a few months.
Yeah.
So that's how I learned photography. Same thing with like creating the website. I did it myself, following YouTube videos, editing Photoshop, which is like, I love Photoshop. It's one of my favorite skills.
Yeah.
I learned Photoshop through YouTube videos.
Okay.
And like this guy would teach how to get rid of the sky. Okay, I would bring another picture and try that. How to like do this, and I would just like, that's how I learned. So yeah, then from that company, it never really took off. But then I got some personal stuff going on, and I put it on the back burner. Then I got cancer, which was a super mild cancer, like the easiest cancer in the world to beat. Right? I actually found it myself too. It's just pretty well. And I dropped something heavy, like I don't know where my
that came out of left field.
Sorry.
Damn. Okay.
One day I was next to my girlfriend in bed, and I just going like this because I felt like a ball, and I was like, I think I have something here. And so I have a checkup coming up, so why don't you? I'm gonna tell the doctor, right?
Yeah.
And prior to that, there's a very famous Reddit post of somebody on Reddit seeing a picture of somebody and telling, hey, you should get your neck checked because you have something in your neck. And from remembering that post, I was like, well, I remember this guy saying something already, so I'm gonna get it checked because I think it might be something, right?
Okay.
So I go to the doctor and I explained it, and he's like, oh, yeah, okay, we're gonna do ultrasound. He said, if it's bigger than 2 centimeters, we had to do something about it. If it's below that, we don't have to do anything about it. I said, oh, okay. So they go and did the thing, and it was like about 2.5 or 3. So he said, okay, he said, we need to take it out. Like, okay. Just like prior to that, the lady, one of the associates there, he's like, you should try this. You get watercress, radish, and onion, and you blend it together, you juice it, and you drink that twice a day, and that's going to reduce it.
Okay.
That was the most disgusting thing you could possibly eat. I did it for like
I can't imagine that helped that much.
Absolutely, I cannot do this. Okay, it was so bad. It was it's like eating a raw onion and radish and watercress. It's like not even good. None of those things. So like I spent like a whole year going to the doctor. Like they took my blood like 20 different times. They like did a bunch of tests. But when I talked to my doctor, he's like, listen, you had nothing to worry about. I do about 300 of these surgeries a year.
Yeah.
This is a very common surgery. You'll be all right. You can even see the scarf. Like he was a really, really good doctor. And I was like, okay, I'm not to worry. Now, when they got into it though, they did find out that mine was already 3 centimeters and there were like 9 lymph nodes that were cancerous. So they took all of that stuff out. So it was a good time, and I was like, it was a good time for me to find out.
Yeah,
and didn't spread anywhere. And now, like, I'm on a third year of being cancer free. Like, I get checked out my whole body every now and then, every few years. So yeah, so that's that story.
Wow. Okay. So you had a little cancer interval in between your e-comm beers and going back to to waitering, and then what happened?
So I had to put it aside. Like I didn't pay as much business attention to the business as I should have. So I just left it, and then COVID came.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was actually not necessarily COVID came. Then actually, I spent a little bit of time doing social media management for restaurants.
Okay.
That was the next thing I wanted to do. So 2 guys that work with me and I created this little social media management agency that we would take pictures of the restaurant and post for them on Instagram, the food and whatnot. And I so happened to, when we just got started, I so happened that this girl that used to work with me in another restaurant has opened a little cafe in New Jersey, and she posted something like, "Oh, does anybody help me with like Facebook ads or something on my website?" And I messaged her immediately, "Oh, I got you. I got this company I just started. We get you like." And she said, "Oh, why don't you come and talk to my husband?" So I got the 2 guys, and we got together. We went on a meeting, and we like brainstormed. We like, we need to get this customer. It's gonna be our first customer. A calling call, and then like we started studying the town all around it, like the different restaurants. We came in prepared with the statistics, talk to them, and like ready. And actually, they hire us. Okay. But it's like a super cheap project that didn't last a lot. Like we didn't. There were differences, and it didn't work. So the other 2 guys got out of it, and I just kept it for myself. I kept doing it for a couple of years, a couple of months, and then we were like all of us work in the same restaurant, which is a multi-million restaurant with like 5 different locations or 6 different locations. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get them to hire me. I was still sort of mad at those guys, and I wanted to prove that I could do it, and I could do it really well. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna get them to hire. So I came out with a plan to do it. I talked to one of the directors that knew me, worked with me. I said, you know what? Can you give me an interview? I wanna do this. And I went to the restaurant outside the restaurant 9, took a picture of the restaurant, and edited it really well. I sent it to her. She said, look, this is some sort of what I can do. And I sent her all of the pictures I already had from the little Italian restaurant. And then I went to the beverage director, and I knew that he was super proud of his drinks. So I actually did a photo shoot for drinks in my house, created a bunch of different drinks. I did a photo shoot, and I sent an email to him too. I said, this is what I can do. And they got me an interview with this girl that was like the one deciding who gave the next social media manager. Before the interview, I prepared myself. I knew she was going to look over my computer. So I organized my computer to make it seem like I was super detailed, like folders of everything. Like I had like maybe 10 fake folders in there that I just go through like with it just to make it look like I have a lot of stuff going on. And I have a really good interview with her, and we're talking. But during the interview, at the end of the interview, she didn't seem like super sold. And I was like, is there something that I haven't shown you that will make you doubt that I can do the work? And she was like, well, you know what? Our restaurants are very beautiful. We put a lot of effort into them. You haven't shown me any indoor pictures. And she was right. But so happens that somebody calls her over, and I have my camera with me. So she's standing at the end of the bar. I grab my camera and I snap a picture of her and the background and the whole bar around her. And I edit the picture on the spot. By the time she gets back, I showed her, this is what I can do for indoors. And she was blown away. She's like, did you just do that? And I'm like, yeah, I did that.
Oh, wow.
And that was it. And from there, I got that job. I became the social media management for this 5 concept, $10 million a year or $50 million a year something restaurant. And those 2 guys were still working there.
Was that enough for you to quit? Was that enough for you to quit? Or
no, it wasn't. And COVID came like 3 months.
Okay.
COVID came like 3 months after, and like the whole thing ended. And that's when COVID came, I decided that I will rebuy the watch.
Look, that is it's a fascinating backstory. So obviously, COVID came, impacted the social media dominance that you were going to start. So where did you go from there? What happened when we all went into lockdown?
Yeah, not even that. I was at the time working in restaurants as well, but COVID came. So you can't work in a restaurant. So I had no job, right? And I was like, but I still have a bunch of watches left.
Okay.
Because I paid for inventory. I wasn't drop shipping. I bought watches. So I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make this work. So I actually came to Twitter, to Money Twitter. That's actually around the time that I came on to Money Twitter. So I started learning about how to get rid of the watches. I found out the Utopia, the Wizard of e-commerce, Utopia. I got a few ebooks. I just kept on learning, and I wanted to continue to get rid of it. So I focused on Facebook ads.
Okay.
And I ended up being successful with Facebook ads and got rid of all the watches. I got rid of it for cheap, but I got rid of all the watches.
Sure.
And then there was a time during COVID, they opened the restaurants back. So I was able to work. I went back to work in a restaurant in between one now. Then my relationship ended right at the beginning of COVID. So I was living there during COVID by myself in an apartment in Brooklyn that I have to spend a lot of time with this woman, and working in a restaurant, and I'm trying to get rid of the watches or getting rid of the watches. And then once this restriction easing up, I came to Puerto Rico with my family.
Okay.
So it was like February, maybe 2 years ago. And I was with my sister, my 2 cousins, and a friend of mine, and another friend. We all came to Puerto Rico. And I was walking around Puerto Rico, one of the beaches, remember this very clearly, with my friend, just the 2 of us, and working on it. And I look at him and I think I'm going to move here. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, I think I'm going to move here. There's nothing stopping me from doing it.
Yeah.
So I go back, we got back to the group and I tell everybody, I'm going to move here. I'm going to move to Puerto Rico. I'm like, yeah, sure. Sure, you're going to do it. I got back to New York and I go to my whiteboard. I still have a picture somewhere of this whiteboard. And I wrote down how much money I would need to survive in Puerto Rico for 6 months without doing anything, without anything that at all, and I wanted to come here and focus on the business. So I did that. That was February. I was living here in June. So it was February to June. I got rid of all my stuff in between. I just gifted all my stuff away. And I have a plan. I'm going to Puerto Rico and I'm going to do a lead generation agency.
Yeah.
I started by focusing on HVAC, which was a huge mistake. And then I went into hair transplant places that I was doing, wanted to catch data for lead generation. And then I actually bought a car for Turo. My new girlfriend and I got 2 of them now that we put on Turo. So that gave me some money. I was still living here. My girlfriend was living in New York. I was going to back and forth every month to New York, and she was coming here every month too. But I didn't want to waste my time in cleaning my apartment, the apartment that was there. So I found a cleaning lady. So I was like, the owner of the apartment found me a cleaning lady. It's a very small apartment, but I still wanted a cleaning lady. So she comes and cleans my apartment and see how much she charges. And so it was very little, and how much time it took her, which was a lot of time. So I was like, oh, she should charge way more than this. Well, and then later on, my computer, I'm facing, and I think I'm gonna fuck around and start a cleaning company.
Thanks to Daniel for joining us on the Growth Lab podcast, and thanks to you guys for listening. Make sure you check out part 2 of this interview next week, when we dive into how Daniel started his cleaning business, built his team, how he acquires customers, and also gains social proof from the clients that he serves. You can access the show notes and resources via the link in the episode description. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others who you think will find it useful across social media, or leave a rating and review on whatever podcast platform you listen to. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @Iam_Matt Harris. That's MATTHARRIS, to catch all the latest from the Growth Lab and how to generate more contract opportunities for your cleaning business. See you next time, and remember, if your cleaning business isn't growing, it's dying.